All right. Welcome to the DigiByte Comm Talk. I'm your host, Script Skynet, and I have with me the legend, Jared Tate. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, just trying to. I do this show just to stay in touch with everybody in the DigiByte community. It's so massive. There's absolutely no way, even if I set up everybody for every night of the year, I'd still be behind. You know what I mean?
I feel the same way. I'm learning updates and news from other people in the community all the time. So, a lot of times people think I know everything, but the reality is I don't. A lot of times I discover new things on Twitter or Telegram, just like everybody else.
Okay, hold up 1 second. My cat's in here destroying everything. Get out, kitty. Okay. Sorry about that. That's the first time it's ever happened. She snuck in here.
Oh, it's so good.
All right. So, so tell the picture I chose was when you were in front of was it the Capitol? And it was like a garden. I don't know if you saw it, but
yeah, it was the garden of the White House there.
The White House. Okay,
yeah. When I was there doing a book event, in 20. Yeah, I guess it was last year sometime. Or no, it was the year before. Wow.
19?
It's
been it's been a while.
Yeah. 2019. You can't believe it's 2021 already.
So yeah. In fact, I put like the year of our Lord 2021. So but here I have one question before we get started. So how impressed are you that we've reached this long of time, 7 years unstoppable, right? This far into crypto in the world with DigiByte and just all the people that are involved with DigiByte and just truly believe it's the best UTXO blockchain in existence. I mean, did you imagine it could go this far with the community? Because I imagine that more community members will step up and really start taking the brand of ownership.
Yeah, I mean, when it all started, I told people, I'm like, look, it's either going to be something really big or it's going to die out and be nothing at all. There's really nowhere in between. So from the beginning, we've kind of had the go big or go home, but it has been truly amazing and humbling, especially this last 3 years, to see the organic growth and just high caliber quality individuals in the community from all backgrounds and walks of life step up and start doing some amazing things.
Absolutely. I mean, so I remember, just like the core members and your developing team, and you were just going around and just basically just telling everybody, hey, this is blockchain technology, not just a cryptocurrency, but solves real world use cases. And I remember watching all those seminars. You just really impressed me, man. So I've been on talk like crypto talks with DigiByte, like the celebration DigiByte shows that we are with Josiah and then some other people, but mainly Josiah. And you and Noah Seedman was the last time I was there, and I jumped off and started, I was going to buy a house before COVID. But you were really inspiring, man, and you still are to this day. I remember you breaking down everything was going to change. This COVID thing was just going to be devastating to our economy. You were right.
Oh, well, I mean, I appreciate the the kind words there. Yeah, it's been a heck of a year. I mean, a lot of it, every morning I wake up and I run an algorithm and I bring up about 50 news websites and I bring everything in from, far left, far right, middle ground, finance, industry specific, crypto specific, 3D printing, construction news. Like I just try and aggregate as much information and kind of see where the state of the world's going, because not only does it affect everything in crypto, but it gives the opportunity to showcase and utilize points where blockchain technology could be applied and beneficial for all of humanity.
Yeah. So. And I don't know if you can see the comments right now. They should say comments, then private chat, but you can see everybody's comments if you wish.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Thanks for pointing out.
But anyway, so we got some good faithful followers on here. Sometimes we get the other guys.
Few trolls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we get a
that's
few
pretty
trolls.
normal.
You know, where would
Yeah.
we be without the trolls? You know. um. So tell us your like. This has been a very long vacation for you, and should I say, well deserved. I remember when you Josiah did the sabbatical. What was it? The called the Medium article, and I read that through and through. I had my wife read it and recorded her, and I did a little like tribute to you and just all that you have accomplished to that point where you're going to take basically a vacation, just chill, and you know when that happened, a lot of mixed feelings happened. It just really weird how one man. Uh, Not like Elon Musk, right? He just says something, everybody's like, whoa. But I mean, like no one has any brains anymore. But it just seemed like, you know, you stood the test of time and you're like, you know what? We stand with DigiByte. I had what I had to say. I'll let you guys figure it out, basically. And it kind of did kind of unfold. I think a lot of people are blind to the fact that they just don't pay attention what's going on crypto Twitter and don't pay attention what's actually going on behind the scenes because you were basically right there in the dirt knowing what was going on, and you have a lot of supporters even to this day. They love you, man, and they you know, everybody that I talk to anyway talks well of you. So every once in a while you get those haters, but I'm glad
They're
you're
not
here.
as bad as they used to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, it's, you know, to be perfectly honest, over the last 7 years, there's been a few times where I have gotten burned out. You know, I mean, there were several times I was putting in 100 to 120 hour weeks, and there's nothing else, you know, but crypto. So, you know, when I publicly came out and said that, you know, behind the scenes, I was actually still the entire time working on DigiByte, either associated projects or technology that would impact it. I just, you know, decided it's probably best that you know, I know I am the creator, I'm the founder, but it's not just me. I mean, this entire blockchain is way more than me. So, you know, over the last 3 years, 4 years, you know, over time, I've turned stuff over to other members of the community, you know, the website, servers, other technology, because, you know, I've always wanted to make sure that if, you know, I get hit by a bus or something else or an asteroid, you know, nothing really changes. Everything goes on because it's not about one person. You know, what DigiByte is it's about the grassroots organic movement of people around the world. And that's what makes it possible. So,
Yeah, and I've noticed that too. You know, I'm in touch with quite a few members, and yeah, just slowly but surely. I mean, even the website changed. I remember the website changed, and now it's more of a modern look. I uh, to me, I like the old style. I wanted like a futuristic look if it ever changed, but modern's cool.
well,
And
I think we're on our like fifth iteration of websites, fifth or sixth now,
oh, really?
since 2014. So, you know, it's an evolving process, right? And the more people, the more input. And the beautiful thing is there doesn't have to be just one website. You know, I mean, there's other, I mean, I know digibyte.io is kind of the main focal point, but I mean, there's other great websites out there too. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, just one person's interpretation of what DigiByte is, right?
Right.
So,
Well, the branding stays the same for right now, right?
yeah, we need to keep the, you know, I
Keep
mean,
the
it's,
branding.
I see no reason to change the name DigiByte or the logo at this point, you know.
Right.
Uh, you know,
Let's just
it
make that
works
clear,
just
guys.
fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
just a little bit briefly, just tell us like, how's it been your vacation? I mean, have you enjoyed it? What have you been doing? What's your thoughts? Um,
well, like I said, I didn't actually really take a vacation,
well,
so
well, go ahead
maybe
and tell us why you
publicly.
didn't.
You know, I kind of, there's just some projects that I've been passionate about, and you know, because of COVID, you know, the lockdowns, the whole situation, it kind of, you know, it presented itself as almost a reset opportunity for me personally. You know, I ended a couple of projects that I was working on that never came to fruition. One of them was the real estate project. Because of COVID and a bunch of other circumstances that happened, it just, you know, wasn't
Talking
going to
about
work out.
Vesty.
Yeah, about Vesty. So, I mean, it's still a great idea, but the amount of hurdles to overcome when you're dealing with the legacy, financial and real estate system, it is a bit overwhelming. So it wasn't as easy as we first thought it would be when we set out. And also some other issues and some things happen, but that's life. You just got to work with it. So, one of my first passion has actually been aviation. I got my pilot's license when I was a teenager, and then I went to helicopter school. But because of the financial crisis, I was forced to drop out and basically get a real job, right? So that's software. So there's actually, I think, a huge a lot of people don't know, but the FAA just basically kind of because of COVID has actually started authorizing commercial drone deliveries in the U.S., right? Like in Boston, they were the first medicine deliveries between hospitals via drone in commercial airspace. Well, the FAA is in the process right now of publishing this technology, what they call remote ID, where basically a drone broadcasts its identity to all surrounding civilian aircraft, right? Well, the problem is right now in its current implementation, it's unencrypted and it's a huge security vulnerability and privacy issue. So the FAA is still open for comment right now. But to me, that's a huge area where something like DigiID could be used with UASs in our civilian airspace system. So I've actually been building, well, you didn't really call them drones, but we call them, just radio controlled airplanes since I was a kid.
Right.
And so it's a big hobby of mine. And I actually combine 3D printing with 3D printing drone bodies and then, programming some of the, autonomous flight software. So that's actually something I've been messing around with. And like, how can we bring blockchain and get DigiByte used as a standard in this new system that's being built as we speak? I mean, none of these rules have been finalized.
Right.
So, I'm not saying there's any like formal thing going to happen or official partnerships. I don't want people to get, running rumors, but that's something I've been playing with on the side.
I've also been in the software realm, or like, have you been, is that what you're saying? Like,
oh yeah, I mean, all of it. So,
right.
There's this concept. One of the ideas I've liked doing for a long time is like using my DigiID and my DigiByte wallet to like unlock the front door to my house, turn my lights on and off. There's a lot of cool applications you can use to it because like you mentioned earlier, blockchain is much more than just finance, right? It's, it's anywhere where there's some sort of need for a trusted entity or third party where there's currently some sort of third party or middleman making money or profit, it can be replaced by blockchain technology, most likely, whether it's contract settlement, whether it's, some sort of authentication, password replacement, the sky's the limit. But the cool thing about the drone technology is if you basically give a drone a DigiID and it can authenticate itself with other aircraft or, and that's the whole premise of what they're trying to do, right? Because the airspace gets crowded. If you put 10,000 drones up there, you don't want them running into commercial airplanes, right?
Yeah.
But if you give them all a unique DigiID that protects the company or, because basically right now what the FAA is proposing, if there's like, say, a pizza delivery drone and it's on your way to your house, well, it's going to be broadcasting your information, its owner, its identity, and where it's going. So that way, if your neighbor's like, hey, I want the pizza, and it goes out there with a net or a shotgun or something, like brings the drone down, you know where it's going. So, that whole, there's a huge opportunity right now for something blockchain related and nobody's talking about it. I haven't heard anybody mention utilizing something like DigiID or blockchain technology to solve this remote ID program that the FAA is trying to fix.
I actually had that conversation with my wife not too long ago where I live in the Midwest and we got some, rednecks out here and they will shoot those things down. They're like, you're in my airspace.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a huge question, right? Like who actually owns, the airspace over your house? It's going to be a contentious issue moving forward with a lot of people, I think. So, and
I heard Amazon's trying to get involved with that too.
Well, the technology has basically been around. They've had it for almost a decade, but the issue, like I said, has been the federal regulations with the FAA.
Yeah.
So, That's the big holdup. So that's just, like I said, that's one of the things I've been playing around with. I haven't announced anything publicly because I don't have any sort of hard prototype to show people at the moment. But it is possible. So
Nice. Well, I'm also, I heard you and Josiah talk about what about those like securing an app on your phone with DigiID
yeah,
and
I
then
mean,
like be able to unlock your remote locks or the like your cameras and all that. I would love for if I ever got a system like that, I would want it
so
secured.
one of the things that I've tried to, I mean, if you look at this movement, the trends, right? You've got like Google Home Hub,
Uh-huh.
Siri HomeKit, Amazon Alexa. There's this move to have this central brain in your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that brain becomes the authenticator for, for your TV, your light bulbs, your door lock, your garage door opener, your toaster, your washing machine. But the problem is, if all of those devices are phoning home to the mothership, that's some serious security vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah.
I think a year and a half ago, I went to buy a new dryer, and the sales guy was trying to convince me that I needed to get a Wi-Fi enabled smart dryer that could connect to my phone. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to buy one of those, right? The last thing I want is an unencrypted, unsecured dryer connecting to the internet with an exposed IP address that anybody could remotely hack in, overload it, and burn my house down. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
these are some serious issues we're going to run into with smart appliances in the future moving forward. So I've often thought about like some sort of like personal, I think in my book, I referred to it as a personal blockchain portal, where it's used to authenticate and secure any data requests coming in and out of your home and smart devices. So that way you can filter unrestricted data access, for people with malicious interests, or just the fact that, I mean, the reason they want to use smart washers is so they can use smart tags and they can see which clothes you're wearing often and then market to you, right? And that'll connect to your Facebook advertisements and, everything else. So, we're moving into this world where everything and every device is interconnected. But, I think as of 2018, 90% of smart devices weren't even using encryption, you
Mm.
know? Without getting too graphic, I think one of my favorite stories to just kind of expose this was the smart sex toy hack, where they basically had unencrypted dildos, right? like
Yeah.
like 200,000 of them, and they got exploited. So, people don't realize when they buy these devices, they connect it to their Wi-Fi and their home, that they're basically allowing all these windows into your everyday life. So, to me, blockchain technology in the future needs to provide a huge, like shield, a layer of security and privacy for all this. So, and that's really what DigiID is so flexible, right? You can use it from anything, like I said, to replacing passwords, like what you see with what Anthem ID is doing,
Mm-hmm.
to basically authenticating one drone to another drone. So it doesn't have to be you people. It can be machines. It can be computers. So for instance, smart light bulbs. Each smart light bulb can have a DigiID that can authenticate itself and only be controlled by your private keys. So no hacker could ever remotely turn your lights on or off. Same thing with like a dryer or a smart lock.
That's nice. So
So
I have a comment here from Tori Grossman. That's a great idea. Now I've also said this. What about? Is there any way? I mean, I think this might be the middle, like the divider line, to get authentication over your camera on your phone or your laptop or your device itself. And I know it's in there. I mean, how can we just attack the camera where we can secure that with DigiID possibly, or does that have to go through Apple or Android, and they would have to majorly adopt something like that? Or can we
Well,
like,
so you're saying basically to control whether your camera can be turned on or off, right?
yeah,
As a prototype, it could be done. That's an interesting idea. It could be done with a Raspberry Pi and a Raspberry Pi camera, and you'd have complete control over the hardware. The issue there is, Google and Android and Apple have a monopoly, and that is the Achilles heel right now of, and that brings us to the Libertas issue, which, I
yeah,
could go into that a little bit more, but this all ties in together with decentralized social media, right? How do you protect access to your camera so somebody can't remotely turn it on and off? Well, The issue is you got to have direct control over the hardware, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could build a phone that happens, but by default, it's damn near impossible with your Android and Apple, right? Because they can remotely do it anytime they want.
So
but
I
it is
guess the
possible in the
downfall is
future.
if you do something like that, you're basically blocking your service, your phone, and your service. So they'd be like, "Hey, you block us, we'll just turn your
Well,
phone off."
you could expose it and let it happen on a third party basis, but if you want ultimate control and privacy in the current format, there's really no way to do it, right? That's the problem. Like when we bring up the subject of decentralized social media.
Yeah.
As I've been researching, I've been going through. The reality is there's too many. So, for instance, Mastodon was originally what we thought maybe we could fork and work with, right? Which is kind of like a Twitter alternative where you have all these. They call it the Fediverse, where there's all these different servers. Well, the problem with that is you still have a central party controlling one of these servers, and it may be more isolated. They may only have 10,000, 20,000, maybe 50,000 people on a server, but you're still relying on a single point of failure to basically moderate content, censor stuff, and who also controls the server and who's also liable for the content that's hosted on that server, right?
Yeah.
So that's the danger. So the only way to create a truly decentralized social media is where the end user not only hosts their own node on the network, just like the DigiByte blockchain or Bitcoin blockchain, where you run your own node, but you also host and control your own data. So that way, if you post something nefarious and illegal, well, you're the one that's responsible for it, and you're the one that's going to get in trouble for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's where, like with IPFS, with what they're doing is actually really fascinating, especially with the Brave integration. And to me, that's a huge move, step forward for the evolution of the internet, because there's this topic, it's really fascinating to me, called named data networking, which is effectively what IPFS is. So the internet right now is extremely inefficient, right? So for instance, the people that are watching this video, right? Like, let's say you're on your laptop or your phone. Well, when the request goes from your device to get this video feed, it goes through about 30 steps before it returns the actual TCP/IP packets with the data, right?
Okay.
So that request goes from your phone or laptop to your ISP. So that could be a cell tower, that could be, the ISP regional hub. From there, it gets routed to a DNS server, right? Which is the domain name server. So when you look up, twitter.com or digibyte.io, that's how it knows
Like
which server to go.
AT&T service, basically.
Right. Yeah, they'll run their own DNS servers. Well, then that DNS server forwards that packet request onto this hosting provider, right, that we're streaming here from. That streaming provider then goes to its specific server within its cluster. And then all those packets return along that same set of hops. So, and this is happening, thousands of times a second, right?
Is that much like a direct connect?
Well, so the problem is it's super inefficient, right? So what named data networking is going directly from the request on your device to wherever the data exists on the internet worldwide.
Okay.
And eliminating all that. So it makes everything significantly faster. And that's one of the brilliant things that a blockchain address can be used for, right? So we've talked about, like, a Digi name service could easily be adopted. Ethereum has an Ethereum name service. Namecoin was actually the first one to do this and prove the concept, which was merge mine with Bitcoin in 2012. Most people don't really know about it. But what we have the ability to do basically with DigiByte is create this DigiByte name service layer that allows us to basically, which ties in with DigiID really well in IPFS, to do some amazing things. So with something like that and a new hardware device, or, you could basically create an app that does this, that shares camera permissions. It depends on the application, right? So,
yeah. Well, nice. Well, man, I guess that's a little beyond me trying to, like, control our camera. We can't do it through an app, like control your camera app using DigiByte blockchain.
Well, you could, right? It could happen. You could control it. But if you're talking about ultimate level security, I mean, it depends on what's your purpose for controlling it, right? Is to give access to somebody that you don't really know to take a momentary I mean, but at that point, you might as well just take a picture and send it to them.
Right. Yeah. Don't even worry about it.
But if it's for security, to prevent somebody from remotely snooping on you, you have to control it at the hardware level, which that gets into a whole nother conversation and issue, which is, like I said, this could be done with the Raspberry Pi device. Like they have some new Raspberry Pi devices that you can actually get a cellular kit for, that it's like a bare bones cell phone, smartphone. And I think because of what you've seen this last couple months with the censorship, the deplatforming, you are going to start seeing alternatives pop up outside of the Apple and Google ecosystems.
Right. And I'm actually excited about some of those. I mean, shoot, if you can do it with a Raspberry Pi, why don't we just create our own bot, using the DigiByte blockchain? Like,
well, we could. I mean, the performance is going to be degraded, so it's not going to be like a modern iPhone, 10, but it's possible, right? You got to start somewhere. So, that's somebody who's, passionate about it to do it. I mean, for me, like, I don't have time to prototype something like that right now. I've got way too many other ideas and thoughts rambling around, but it's definitely possible.
I guess there's a lot of people that want to donate DigiByte to you, Jared.
I've refrained from going out and taking donations for some time now. Basically, until I'm ready and I know something will work, I'm kind of one of those people where I want to under promise and over deliver versus going out and hyping things up too soon.
On my channel, I've been doing the DigiByte TA just for fun. Like doing it myself, just letting everybody know, hey, look, I'm not a professional trader. This is only for, I'm just doing it with the community. And in fact, that's what my passion is. It's all about the community. And it's just been a pretty cool thing. And then some of you bigwigs get up on here, and that's, it just surprises everybody. Like, I didn't expect you to technically, text me back, because I know how busy you are.
No, I know you've been active in the community for a long time.
Jared Tate and all this. And I can only imagine just how blown up your phone is, especially at certain points of time through this DigiByte phenomenon.
I actually disable all notifications on my phone except for like a few family people.
Hey, I'm a family person.
in 2018, the last time market was about like this, I woke up one morning and I had 110,000 notifications on my phone across Telegram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I couldn't keep up with it. And I know a lot of people have tried to get a hold of me over the years. I just absolutely have got. I mean, in fact, I've actually had somebody that's helped me manage some of this stuff over the years. That's been a great help, just because it just was overloading. I could literally sit there all day just answering messages. But obviously you don't get anything done at that point. But no, I genuinely appreciate, what you've done for the community, and you started this channel, and, I'm a member of the community just like everybody else. So, like it's DigiByte is all of us. It's, that's the great thing about it. So,
yeah. So, I think there's probably been the most viewership I've had on my channel at the same time. It's all because of you. So thanks. Let's see, where we want to take this. So
I just saw a question. The biggest difference between DigiByte in 2017 and now. I think that's a good question.
The biggest difference, from 17 and 21.
To me, it's a night and day difference. The community is much bigger. The entire industry is matured significantly. In 2017, it started off, we did the SegWit upgrade, I think in April. I think that's what I was working on this time of year. We worked on it for about 4 months, from like December through April of 2017.
Wow.
We were the first ones to do it. We did it before Litecoin. Got it activated that summer. We presented our DigiSign platform in front of Facebook and MasterCard. It was kind of the first time blockchain technology had been presented to the big companies. That was in Singapore. It was the Citibank Tech for Integrity project. And that's really what kicked off we kicked off that 2017, rally, and it started that summer. But because of that, a ton of new people came in. I think the majority of a lot of the people in the community came in around that time. The funny part is there was actually, I kind of hate to say this, but there was a whole different community, from 2014 to 2017. And a lot of those guys, frankly, when it ran up, they all sold and cashed out, and then were kicking themselves 3 months later. I got a lot of it, but some of those people are still around. Some of there. I mean, that's one of the things over the last 7 years, people come and go. That's normal. I mean, people buy, people sell, people get new jobs. They have kids. Their life changes. That's normal. But it's absolutely a different, I feel like, we have institutions. There's all these different groups. I mean, it's like I said at the beginning of this, I can't even keep up with what's going on half the time. I mean, people ask me, I'd be like, I have no idea. I've never talked to those people. I mean, there's announcements that come out that I've never even heard of. I don't even know who they're involved, but they're like big things. And that just shows you how decentralized the DigiByte community has become, between the awareness team, between individuals that have stepped up, between the foundation and the guys, what they're doing in the Netherlands and Europe. Like I said, it's most of the time now I'm learning stuff on social media or news updates or Telegram, just like everybody else. Which is really cool. I mean, for me personally, that's cool because I've always viewed my role is to just kind of, I worked my butt off for, the first 6-7 years, and then just over time start handing things over and then taking, a more background role and letting it's really become its own entity and its own ecosystem.
I've seen, or let's see, I read somewhere you said Singapore, where you were showing how fast DigiByte was, compared to Visa. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, they were there. So it was a showcase of technology. And
Okay.
what we showcased is the DigiSign platform, which basically was, it was like DocuSign, but with blockchain technology. It's still up and running. I mean, they're still securing trade shipments every day between China and the United States and Bangladesh and like other Asian countries. So it's still in use. I mean, after 5 years now, it's kind of incredible it's been that long. But it was kind of the first time we were showcasing, hey, this technology can be used more than just money, right? Because, back then it was very taboo, even in 2017. I think that's one of the biggest differences between 2017 and now is crypto was super taboo in 2017, especially anything monetary or financial. From 2014 through 2018, 19, I sat down with a lot of different big Fortune 500 companies in private. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that never was public because nothing ever formally happened. They were more just trying to educate themselves, and they'd invite you in. So, I've been in a lot of offices in Silicon Valley, but the issue is because DigiByte was so decentralized, there was no company behind it. These companies were like, well, we don't know how to deal with this. We can't control it. If we put our brand out there, it's dangerous. I mean, the morning I showed up for the City Tech for Integrity project or thing in Singapore, we almost got kicked out that morning because of all the Twitter activity. Yeah. Because of all the memes, all the social media stuff. It was kind of funny because the bigwigs, the older people from Facebook, Visa, MasterCard, Citibank, we're like, oh, we can't have this. It's too much brand damage. But then the younger people that work for them were like, hey, no, this is what we want. This is why we're doing this, to bring in engagement. Yeah. This is a new technology. And so, I was in the hot seat that morning. They brought me into a private conversation, and I had to explain to them, this is what's going on. We have no control over those people. Because they told me, they're like, you gotta turn those people off on Twitter. I'm like, I have no control. I'm not making the memes. So that's funny. That's the resistance that we've been up against for this last 7-8 years, but that's totally eroded this past year. It seems like, and it seems like everybody, there's still some naysayers out there who think it's still just a big joke, but they don't really take time to understand the technology. And but I kind of understand some of their concerns because of how this industry has got a bad rap from a lot of the pump and dump scams, right? So.
Yeah, I mentioned Singapore again after you said it because I think you probably don't know how much influence you've had on people visiting early on in those years. Like Zilliqa came from Singapore, all these places. You probably impressed quite a bit of people. And I know you, I mean, if I was any kind of, you know, geek, you'd have impressed me too. Cause I talk to a lot of geeks, and let me tell you, I got a lot of geeky friends, and they still don't know what blockchain technology is. They
No, it
still don't know
amazes
how it
me.
works. They
Yeah.
can't.
No, there's still a lot of very smart engineers and scientists that just absolutely, just for whatever reason, think it's a big joke. But those are we're converting people, day by day. So
Okay, so what the go back to Libertas or Libertas, DigiByte Libertas.
yeah.
And I know you have to have a server and all that. And I think one of my friends was like, "Well, how does it work? Does it run off a server, or does it not run off a server?"
So
Can we? Is there a way to? Is there a system that we don't even have to use the internet at all?
there's ways to do it. Now, here's the first thing I should clarify. There's
Right.
what I've been doing. I'm like, okay, we need decentralized media. We need to do it. So what I've been doing is taking the time going through and evaluating all the other attempts to do this, because there are several attempts, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with every single one of them I've seen so far is it's not really decentralized, right? Because at some point you're going to have an individual or a group of people that's moderating a small community, right? And that's not really decentralized.
Right.
And it goes back to what I said earlier. And so basically where we're at technically development wise is we have to start from scratch. We have to start from ground zero and build something fresh up from the ground, right? But that takes time, that takes a lot of energy, and it takes a clear plan. So that's why I've told everybody, hey, like, look, it's the research, kind of understand things. Because one thing I've learned about software development, I've been doing it, for almost 20 years now, is you're better off to think through everything and plan it out before you ever start writing any code.
Right.
So you have a solid foundation.
Brainstorming roadmaps, some forethought.
Right. But, something like social media, it's not, when we say we advocate free speech and we want true freedom, people can be pretty nasty.
Yeah, I know.
So if you throw something out there and people can post anything they want, any hate speech, any inappropriate photos, you can get in trouble really fast if you happen to be hosting a server and this content's being put on it, right? Because if you're hosting that server, you're liable for it in the views of the federal government, right? So that's the big issue with Mastodon, which is originally I thought maybe this will work. We could do it.
Yeah, it could like ban those people, self-governance kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is that from a tech standpoint and code standpoint, it's just it'd be you're better off starting from somebody, from the beginning. And so the way I envision it looking, so here's a lot of the issues that I've came up with. Okay, so if we create an app for Libertas that you download on your phone, you got to go through the App Store.
Right.
Right. And what did Apple and Google do with Parler? They just kicked it off the store. Right. Well, there's the Android alternative. You can sideload it. Right. But you can't do that on Apple unless you jailbreak your phone, which obviously most people don't know.
Don't know how to do that.
They don't know how to do that. Right. Years ago, there was the F-Droid alternative repository, but it kind of died out, right? Because this hasn't really been an issue and pretty much everybody was using Google Play. So you can't have an app to have a truly decentralized social media experience. So that's a problem. So where does that leave you next? Well, you got to go through the browser, right?
Yeah.
So here's the problem. We have not seen this rolled out yet, but there will be an increase in browser level censorship. So straight up, Google rolls out an update to Google Chrome and actually blocks certain URLs and websites. That's coming. It's in the pipeline. And it's scary, right? This is the modern balkanization of the internet that we're moving into. So how do you bypass that? Right? Because that level of censorship takes it to a whole nother level. Well, the key and the secret to this is to look at why does DigiByte work? Why does Bitcoin work? Well, it works because it's its own protocol communicating through its own medium on its own app.
Yeah.
So that leaves us basically with a desktop app, right?
Okay.
So that desktop app will be created. It'll run, have a visual interface, but it also would basically handle your own data. So it goes back to that point where the user hosts their own data, their own content, their own posts, and then connects to peers, similar to like how DigiByte connects to other peers and nodes, or, et cetera. And it can leverage DigiByte. It can piggyback on top of DigiByte.
Much like the DigiByte core wallet.
Right.
Yeah.
Effectively, we take a core wallet, use DigiID to secure messaging, and then allow anybody to search up that address with posts. To do that, we've got to create something from the ground up, because there is no existing platform out there that can do that. But this is the only way that a truly decentralized social media can be built. Because like I said, if it's an app, it's too easy to get shut down, right?
Yeah,
and it's too dependent. And, the user needs to be responsible for their own data. Because like I said, anytime where you have to allow somebody else to host your data for you, that's where you get into sticky issues, and you're going to have censorship. There's no way around it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. We're going old school, direct, like communication, whatever's on your computer. If the CIA or FBI bust down your house, they need your computer and say, aha, you're guilty. Right. I think what they're trying to do, though, is trying to control you online. So they don't even have to, go to your house right away or try to hunt you down, find out where you are. They could just track you and just watch you for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, metadata, and that's what I was going back to my point earlier. They want all these smart devices in your home so they can monitor everything you're doing, right? And they use all this metadata to track your movement, show your shopping habits, your personality, to eventually to the point where they get up with, they start doing predictive behavior modeling to this guy might do something nefarious in the future. So, we better, and that's the scary thing, right? Because we're already seeing this with the censorship on social media, not to get political, but we're at a point in the United States where we no longer have free speech, because if you don't agree with the, mob rule that's basically in charge, and you have differing opinions, you're labeled everything under the sun, and basically you're deplatformed and you're censored. I mean, there's people that I've been following for a long time who I feel are very like neutral, level-headed, but they're critical thinkers. They ask questions, who have been deplatformed just because they have a differing point of view.
Yeah, they're gone. I know several of them too. Like, they don't take a left or a right, but they're like, let's just get real here. Here's what's really going on. They deplatform them.
Yeah, no, it's yeah.
Are you having like some kind of like concert over there? What's going on?
It's actually
got a bunch of lights flashing.
I don't.
Is that your alarm? Like someone's crossing some wire, and they're coming on your property now?
Actually, it is. It's a motion detect, which I'm not supposed to discuss my OPSEC.
Wow, I got you.
You never discuss your OPSEC.
Hey, you can't get too much security around here.
Let me disable it real quick.
Okay. We're talking about like a direct link blockchain communications protocol that doesn't need any browser or app. So this sounds really cool and doable. And then so the owner has to store it where, and does it have to be linked to the conversation? And if that's the case, it'll be on their computer. Where would that?
Well, it's basically tied. So you have a DigiID, which becomes your social media persona, which is basically a DigiByte address, right?
Yeah.
So when you look up that DigiByte address, just like today, if you look up on the Block Explorer or Digi Explorer, if you look up a DigiByte address with DigiAssets, you can see DigiAssets associated with that address, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, in essence, a DigiAsset could be a social media post,
right?
But the question is that data has to be hosted somewhere. And this is also the same issue that we're solving with the upgrade to DigiAssets, right? So right now, all the DigiAssets are stored on the blockchain cryptographically. But the problem is the human readable data. If I take, if I just take a screenshot of all this and upload it to the blockchain, the only thing I'm actually storing is that SHA-256 string of this image.
Yeah.
right, to verify the authenticity in this existence. But this human readable, JPEG or, whatever image format it is, that's got to be stored somewhere and accessible, right? So that's where, a lot of people don't realize that the problem with a lot of the smart contracts and smart assets like on Ethereum is 90% of them are going through a single server that hosts it. So, and that's Infura. So if Infura goes down, all of a sudden, all these human readable elements of all these smart contracts are completely worthless, right?
Yeah, I heard that too. Like 7 to 1 server, a couple of computers.
Yeah. It's a highly centralized system. Now, the cryptographic data and the verification still exists, right? I mean, that's all a blockchain is a hash of hashes of hashes of hashes. That's what a Merkle tree is. That's why it's so genius mathematical, and that's why it's so compact and efficient.
Okay, so the JPEGs,
that's the protocol level.
The JPEGs, though, what I was like looking into some like older, like I don't know, people that were like legitimate hackers on YouTube, just stories, right? Documentaries. And I realized that Onion browser was like the Onion dark web, like cryptographic, um, uh, like 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 the messages peeled off when they send it in Onion layers until they got to their destination, and then that person that was receiving it finally saw the actual message because it was to them. So how would we do that? It wouldn't be anything like that for the JPEGs, would it? Or because you have to send it cryptographically, like you said, but the JPEG has to be stored. So, I mean, is it visible after you send it?
So you're kind of I know what you're getting at here. So the Onion Tor was actually developed by the U.S. Navy, right?
Yeah.
To allow and secure communication and a block trace route, a bunch of different stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intertwined components that are used in the blockchain that are also used with the Tor network, and you could actually use DigiByte or Bitcoin over the Tor network. It's built in, right? You can interface with it, and you can send transactions through the Tor network. I mean, that's one of the reasons we did Dandelion, right? Because if you're sitting where you are in the Midwest, and I'm watching incoming addresses on the blockchain, and I have several nodes, I can sit there and I can watch the origination IP of a lot of different transactions, right? Specifically, even with Bitcoin. So if I see somebody with a specific IP that keeps sending a lot of large amounts of transactions, and I've just got a simple tool out there monitoring that, well, I could be like, hey, maybe that guy has a lot of crypto. Let's go pay him a visit in his house because this is his IP address, right? So the whole reason we did Dandelion is Dandelion works a lot like the Onion layer and the Onion where it makes hops, except with Dandelion, when you broadcast the transaction, it'll pick a random number. I think it's between like 20 and 90 hops it'll make before it gets broadcast. So it looks like a Dandelion when it goes out. So the origination IP of that transaction is completely different. So but yeah, so when it comes to like an image, this is where IPFS and that name data networking actually does really comes in, like I think is the missing piece to this, right? Because if you store that image that you put on a social media post for your own DigiAsset on your own computer, and you're responsible for your own data, and you have it out there, well, that would be the source that everybody kind of pulls it from, right? Now, obviously, there's an issue if you get hit and it goes viral and 10 million people try and download it once. It's going to knock your computer offline. That's just a reality. And that's where there can still be some middle third parties that super hosts or master asset nodes or something like that, right? That could be, that could happen. But basically, if you wanted to delete the data, you delete the data and it's no longer there, right? So that's the brilliant part about controlling your own data. Now, obviously, somebody could copy it and host it themselves, but that original social media post that you make on a decentralized blockchain network, it would basically be yours. You could take down at any point in time, and if you wanted to delete it, you could delete it. I mean, because once again,
that's what we lost. I feel like we lost quite a bit of our liberties and our rights with our individual data.
Yeah, no, this is it. When it's the old adage, when it's free, you're the product, right? And so I am a true believer that in the United States, we need a digital bill of, or a bill of digital privacy, right? A bill of digital rights.
Like the GDPR.
Yeah, exactly what GDPR is. That is the one thing that's missing in the United States. We have the Bill of Rights, but it is time in the United States for the creation of a Bill of Digital Rights, because, you know, the same privacy that's allowed when you're in your car, when you're in your home, you know, that needs to apply digitally, right?
Yeah.
And there was a few key court cases that are used as legal precedent to do all this from back in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
I think the FBI was wiretapping some guy, but because they went to the phone company for the records and not the individual without the approval, then it was legally determined different. And that court case has basically been the fundamental difference in precedent in legal jargon that's been used. So that way, if you know, if they go to the tech company instead of directly to you, it's different, right? It's a different legal process.
Yeah,
So,
because well, which is funny because that's why, let's see, Apple didn't want to give away their passwords on individual iPhones to like the FBI or something, because, you know, one of the things that the reason why people get iPhones is you know, it's locked. You know, they basically would sell out their customers if they did that. And so that's somewhat truly unique of, you know, iPhones. You'd have to jailbreak them, you know, and I don't think the FBI likes to do that. You know, like, where do we get our tech guy to break this phone? You know?
well, you know, for me, I think there's enough laws and privacy protections. I might catch some flack from saying this. I'm not as worried about, you know, the FBI or the government, right? I mean, I still think overwhelming the average, you know, FBI agent person's a good person, right? And they got rules and laws they follow. And as long as I know I'm not doing anything bad, I'm not out there intentionally, you know, doing illegal activity, so I'm not really worried. What worries me is private corporations that are operating with basically no oversight, and with basically, we have no idea what they're doing with our data, right?
Yeah.
And the laws are different from them. So all these devices and stuff, I mean, we're at a point in history where corporations and tech companies are becoming more powerful than governments. And that's scary. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy, but you know, it came out, what, 2001? And look where we are 20 years later. It's kind of scary.
Oh, man. That's funny. That's a funny movie, guys. If you guys haven't seen that movie, go watch.
Everybody needs to watch Idiocracy. And it came out in 2001, and it's absolutely mind blowing. And you'll be terrified, you know, where we're going.
That's it. Yeah, that's so true, man. And it's so true. Like, that's exactly where we're going.
Just watch the first 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's all you need to know.
Okay, so I'm seeing some more questions pop up here about DigiAssets, right? How to find some good DigiAssets coders. So here's the deal: finding good coders for anything, let alone blockchain technology, is about like finding rare pandas, right? All the good ones are, you know, either gone or they've taken, you know, etc. But no, so there's work being done right now to streamline and upgrade DigiAssets and to make it easier. So there's multiple even corporate movements basically to create an open source toolkit to allow people to easily create DigiAssets, right? Full disclosure, when I did, along with you know, one other key individual, the majority of the initial work on DigiAssets in 2017, 2018, we had some serious private discussions on what we should release and what we shouldn't release. And basically what we decided is we did not want to make it super stupid easy to just anybody go out and mint an asset on the development servers that we launched, because we had the liability, we thought, from a regulatory perspective. So if somebody went out there and launched an ICO, it was all hosted on our dev servers and our platform, we didn't want to be responsible for it. So what we did is we put all the tools out on GitHub that anybody could create and run their own server stack and do whatever they wanted with it. Now, unfortunately, it's not exactly the easiest stuff to do. So we've only had a couple actually go out and do that themselves, right? So we're like, okay, you know, one of the great things, you know, I don't like to go out and attack other projects. You know, I know I may have got a bad rap from that from time to time. But that's just because I'm speaking my mind. But one of the things Ethereum has done well is they did create an easy to use format and documentation and explanation for how to make smart contracts on Ethereum. And that's a huge part of why I think we had the explosion of ICOs on top of Ethereum. It was so damn easy, right? So eventually that's what we want to get to with DigiByte, where we do make it easy. But the other downside is there's no blockchain in the world that could host everything on the internet, right? So if you let anybody go in there and just make an unlimited amount of just spammy, whatever, you're still using up valuable space on the blockchain, even though it's a tiny amount. That adds up when you're doing it millions.
We don't want to use any space.
Right. Yeah. So you want to architect things in a way where you're leveraging, I like to explain to people, a blockchain is a lot like a car, right? So a car has all these subsystems. So you've got the engine, the transmission, you got the air conditioning. Well, blockchain's like that too. You have all these mathematical cryptographic subsystems. And the way that these things intertwine is actually really what makes a blockchain and unique. So there's a lot of different components in a blockchain that were highly advanced mathematical cryptographic developments, often made top secret by the US government for 20 or 30 years. I mean, public and private keys were created in 1979 by Dr. Merkle in his Stanford PhD thesis, right? I think it was 1979. And then the Army came in and classified it for a while. And, and then there's elliptic curve cryptography with Leslie and Lampoon. There's all these different components, right? And the way they interact. Well, if you leverage some of those subcomponents, like for instance, DigiID, the way that the DigiID implements private key or utilizes the private keys, once you send one anchor transaction to establish your identity, that's the only data you use on chain. And from there, you can scale and use that you could use it infinitely, and it has no effect on chain size, right? So you could do 1 million authentications a second with your DigiID, and you're never going to burn up space on chain. So that's what I mean by architecting things properly. So when it comes to assets, the reason DigiAssets is a second layer on chain is because you didn't want to put all that unnecessary bloat in the chain. And that's basically what Ethereum did, right? Is Ethereum basically said, hey, we're going to put
Ethereum, and it
bloated it before. There wasn't a single app that ever got off the scale besides CryptoKitties, right?
CryptoKitties.
That's about it, right?
Yeah.
So because with Ethereum, every single step has to be executed on chain, and this idea of creating this, Turing, I'm like, this makes no sense from a computer science standpoint. You're never going to scale it infinitely. So what we're taking and the approach we're doing with DigiByte is let's leverage the math and encryption and cryptography, separate it, let people or companies that are building specific apps be responsible for that human readable data. Because once again, just because you have the cryptographic jarbled mess that's condensed, it's not human readable. So you got to have the human readable version of that data somewhere. And that's why DigiAssets is a separate layer. And ideally, we want users or companies and content creators to be responsible for that own data and to host it, and so that way we much more efficiently utilize the blockchain.
I have a question. I know everybody's hitting up the question here, the chat, and there's a ton of great questions. I was talking to Josiah, like what the difference between a node and a mining node, and he was walking me down through that process. And then, Matthew Cornelia's explaining how, over time, 2035 will eventually, have a smooth transition in the mining with the transaction fees and all that for the rewards. My question is the mining algorithms, the 5 in the DigiByte blockchain, will continue to mine and generate rewards from sending and receiving, right? Transaction fees, which are very minimal, right? But the nodes themselves. Okay, how should I ask this question? Okay, so is there any other way that instead of like on the second layer asset layer of DigiByte, to somehow, instead of going through all the layers, the communication layer, how is there a node that we can tap into that communication layer where we can like basically how should I say this? Expand the DigiByte blockchain with like multiple asset layers. Is there any
So
way we can communicate and just? I would like to say like multiply DigiByte, but that would be like freaking
well, so
crazy.
what makes DigiByte is the nodes that are on the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is a difference between a mining node and a full validation node, right?
Yeah.
So if you're just running the DigiByte node on your computer, the full node, what it's doing is it's helping verify transactions and blocks as they come across the network, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, miners are the ones that create new blocks, right?
And minting DigiByte, right?
Right, and mint DigiByte, right? So what we've talked about, and I think I know where you're getting at, is creating a DigiAsset version of the DigiByte core wallet, I guess, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Well, to do that, and we thought about that, and there's some different ways, is that, okay, if we do this, we incentivize people to run a DigiAssets node, which is also running a DigiByte node. I mean, one of the things we've talked about is just packaging them together, which, seems like a simple, straightforward thing. And then they get some sort of incentive for running that. I mean, one of the things that's always attracted me to the idea of proof of stake is it incentivizes more nodes on the network, right? So if you keep your wallet open and you keep staking, whatever X amount of digibytes, it helps decentralize the network, and then people get a reward without investing in mining equipment. So obviously we haven't implemented in that, but there's been a lot of discussion over proof of stake over the years. One of my thoughts is, well, what if we take one of the 5 mining algorithms and swap it for staking, similar to like what Decred has done. I know those guys. I've had a lot of personal conversations with the Decred guys. I'm impressed with what they've done. The first hybrid proof of work, proof of stake system, right? But then there's the whole regulatory environment about, is that a security? Is that, and that's why they got, they've been delisted and they've had issues getting on exchanges. So, you got to look at it from the, right now we have something that's golden with DigiByte, right? It's decentralized. There's no ICO. There's no company. It's pretty damn impossible to make the argument it's a security, unlike other things out there, right? So, the problem is, how do you do that? Well, with DigiAssets, it's a little different because it's not the main DigiByte layer, right? So with DigiAssets, you could have a DigiAsset for DigiAssets, that fuels uses, there's a lot of different ideas. But the idea is with a DigiAsset that you could use any existing, you could already actually do this. I've actually seen this done even with Bitcoin, but it's easier with DigiAssets. Although it's the current transaction fees, it's impossible, I should say, now with Bitcoin. I mean, spending $30 for a, simple anchor transaction isn't going to scale in any business model.
Right.
That's like like today I was messing around with stablecoins. I just saw a question about DigiDollar and I was going to get to it. I was doing some research today on Tether, USDC, some of these other stablecoins. And I went to move $100 and it was going to cost me $54 because it's an Ethereum smart contract. I'm like, wow, once again, this is the problem with the way they've approached smart contracts on chain. And like I said, I'm not knocking them. I think they've done, they brought in a lot of people. I don't agree with the way that they did it and how centralized Ethereum became and was from the beginning. But nevertheless, you got to acknowledge the fact that they've played an important role in the evolution of blockchain technology. So one of the ideas we have is, what if we allow existing Solidity smart contracts on Ethereum to easily be ported over to DigiByte? Seems like a pretty big no-brainer to help bring people over, right? But even more than that, we shouldn't confine people to a specific programming language. So it is possible right now for somebody to create their own JavaScript, C++, C#, Python, Ruby contract, anchor it in a DigiAsset, and execute it. It's already possible. We've already played it around. I mean, we haven't really ever publicly demoed it, but it's possible. So what we really want to do is create an environment where it's super flexible and people can do all sorts of use cases with minimal impact on the chain, because this gives us the optimum amount of scalability.
Well, Jared, I hope you don't get upset and leave. I gotta figure out what's going on out there.
Yeah, no worries.
And I'll
Gotta
be
check
right
on the
back.
cat,
But
right?
one of the,
Yeah.
yeah, talk to the chat. Hey guys. Hey community, you can talk to Jared. I
Yeah.
did have a question, and where I was leading it with Jared was, I'll ask it right back. Hold on.
All right. Yeah. Let me answer the question about the DigiDollar. So as of right now, there hasn't been any specific work done on DigiDollar. What the idea is right now, if you look at the existing stable coins out there, so you have Tether, you have USDC, you have these other ones, they're all centralized, right? There's a company that's claiming that they have X amount of dollars in a bank account, and they're the ones that are minting and issuing these stable coins, claiming that they're one-to-one back to a dollar, right? Well, here's the issue. We don't actually know that in some cases. I mean, there's all this talk. Does Tether really have all it does? Does it, is it really truly backed by what they say it is? But basically, we don't really know. And I'm not here to say one way or the other, right? But the idea is, if you create a truly decentralized stable coin that isn't dependent on a centralized company or a centralized organization, it's much more true form, right? So, for instance, the way that USDC works right now, the company has a bank account. They say, hey, we have X amounts. We're going to mint these X amount. So you still have to, create a proof of reserve when you have a stable coin, right? Well, how do you do that in a decentralized way? Well, my thought is if you take the DigiByte blockchain, and especially with the current market cap now, this becomes easier. But you create in the core wallet, like the user would have the ability to basically say, hey, I'm going to mint 100 DigiDollars today, but in exchange for those 100 DigiDollars, I'm going to lock up $100 worth of DigiByte in my core wallet. And this is actually possible by something known as time lock verify on the blockchain. It's really not utilized in any use cases in Bitcoin or DigiByte, but it's possible right now. So what you would do is you'd say, hey, I want to lock up $100 worth of DigiByte. That will unlock itself in the future. So you basically, like, say 6 months or 12 months. So you don't lose the potential upside in that 12-month period of what DigiByte could do, right? But in the meantime, you could mint 100 DigiDollars worth of DigiByte in your wallet. So it's decentralized. It's not like there's a central company doing this. Anybody, simultaneously, thousands of people could be doing it. So what that does is it locks up more DigiByte, but at the same time taps into that value. But in order to do this, you've got to have a conversion rate. And I'm tentatively calling this the DigiDollar index. And it'll work similar to like how the difficulty adjustment works, right? To make sure. And so what you do is you'd have to bring in the pricing data from like 30 exchanges per block. So each block you would have a DigiDollar ratio exchange rate that gets anchored into the blockchain and stored with every block. So it's updated every 15 seconds. And so what happens is if the price of DigiByte goes up, you have this DigiDollar ratio that basically says, hey, you locked up $100 worth of DigiByte, but that DigiByte you have locked up is now worth $200. So effectively what happens is that 100 DigiDollars you made are actually backed by 200 DigiDollars worth of DigiByte. Well, that becomes a problem, right? Because you got to have this free floating peg that pegs one DigiDollar to one US dollar. So what you do is you allow somebody else to basically come in and mint 100 DigiDollars at, say, a rate of 0.5. So you actually get a discount and you're actually incentivized, right? So you have this free floating blockchain based, every block that gets updated DigiDollar exchange ratio. And then what happens is if it goes the other way, say the price of DigiByte goes down, and let's say that 100 DigiDollars you minted is only backed by $75 worth of DigiByte. Well, then you got to make it more expensive for people to issue new DigiDollars, right? So that rate has to go up. So this rate would basically be real time, each block, and it's a truly decentralized stablecoin, which, like I said, does not exist out there at all. Now, the problem with all this is a lot of work and requires some major upgrades to the protocol. So it's not something we can just willy-nilly throw together and throw out there, because this has to actually be implemented at the protocol level to be successfully. But it truly would be a game changer because, like I said, there is no product out there like it. Not only that, because you're incentivizing more DigiByte to be locked up, you're actually making it scarcer and scarcer, which puts upward pressure. And if you do these cryptographic smart locks where you can't touch this for say 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, if there is a major market event, a lot of people don't realize this, but one of the downsides is because DigiByte has such a large community compared to a lot of other groups. When there is major price action, everybody tends to move together as a group, right? And that's what we've seen in the past. Whereas some projects where there's only like a bunch of insiders and a few other people, you don't see as big of price movements, right?
Right.
When everybody either panics in or panics out. So this helps kind of mitigate that. But the idea is to create a DigiDollar peg currency where DigiByte itself becomes the proof of reserve. So every single block, anybody can see how many DigiByte are locked up network wide and how many DigiDollars are actually basically in circulation at any given time. So then in order to unlock that original $100 worth of DigiByte you locked up, and you get the option to say if it's a 6-month contract, at the end of that, basically you have to burn those DigiDollars out in order to unlock them, if that makes sense, because that's how you stabilize it and you keep it. And the reason I like the lockup method is because, like, for instance, like what Factom did with PegNet, you could basically create a fiat currency, but they destroy the crypto in the process. So if you use Bitcoin or DigiByte to basically create that stable coin, that Bitcoin or DigiByte gets destroyed when they do it. So that's it. You don't get to capture that upside of, like, for instance, 12 months ago, if you had locked up 100 DigiDollars 12 months ago, the DigiByte you locked up would be over $1,000 now, right? So if you burned that 100 DigiByte a year ago, well, wouldn't you be a little pissed? You're like, what the hell? I got these fiat tokens, but I didn't capture the upside. So the way that the DigiDollar would work was it's almost like a savings account, or it's locked in for a futures contract kind of thing. So anyway, I know I probably just confused a lot of people, so I don't know if they can replay this, but the DigiDollar,
I think everybody will.
it's not an easy thing to do because, like I said, it's major upgrades, major testing. And here's a note that I want to tell people. DigiByte's been through 7 hard forks now. We're working on the next generation to upgrade some stuff. We're talking about swapping algos out, upgrading stuff. But right now our market cap's sitting at like what, 1.1, 1.2 billion, with an unfiltered market cap almost pushing 2 billion. It's a hell of a lot harder to make changes to $1 billion network than it was in 2014 when our market cap was 100 grand, right? There's way more people involved. There's way more exchanges involved. So over time, it gets harder and harder and harder to make big changes. Now, the good thing is, since we've had 7 years, we've worked out, we've streamlined a lot of things, and we've made the best, most efficient decentralized blockchain out there, right? But obviously, we want to, continue to make upgrades. And that's another reason why we chose to separate DigiAssets out as a secondary protocol layer, because it's a hell of a lot easier to make upgrades to it versus like rolling it out through the entire network.
Dude, holy crap, dude. You just like command like this 15-minute discussion. I hope everybody understands what's going on. Replay that and just re-listen to that. The question I have something going on at 8. I can join right around 8:05 maybe, if she'll let me. But so I have like another group setting. And so what I was hearing was potentially we can do Libertas with the on a command screen privately off the browser, sidestepping apps, and of course we'll be accountable for our words, and we'll be able to send the DigiDollar in like through this kind of like window of a command center, right? Like our window of opportunity in the DigiByte blockchain. So that's kind of really interesting. Now, is there a way? I guess what I was saying was is there a way where instead of using the DigiByte blockchain for the DigiDollar, is a way that we can start up a whole new like three algorithms that, or five, but three that would focus on the DigiDollar and be verified by nodes that already exist on the DigiByte blockchain, and that way it could like kind of maybe link.
So the way this would work, it would totally rely 100% on top of DigiByte, right?
Right.
So it'd use everything. What we're really doing is basically leveraging DigiByte for security, but also as the reserve asset that backs the currency, right? Okay. Now, if we were just to say replace one or two of the algorithms and have those mint DigiDollars, well, the problem is how do you maintain that peg ratio of a one DigiDollar is one US dollar, or the DigiEuro, right? You got to have some sort of free floating peg. So there's I've been doing a bunch of research on this. Hold on just a second. And I think I tweeted these out earlier. I don't know where they are here. I've got a bunch of books on like currency pegs and exchange rates and different structures throughout history. So, an example I like to use is like the Hong Kong dollar, right? So the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar, and it's allowed to trade in a narrow band.
Right.
Well, when you peg one currency to another currency, how do you maintain that peg? Well, throughout history, there's been times when that peg breaks and you have mass cataclysmic events. Like, for instance, not too long ago when the peg for the Swiss franc broke, right? Against, was it the euro? You had the British pound in the past, right? That's where like George Soros made all his money when he shorted the pound, right? So when it comes to pegging a cryptocurrency, a decentralized, and this is what a lot of people don't really understand, is when you take a limited, scarce, finite crypto like Bitcoin or DigiByte, Bitcoin having a max supply of 21 million, DigiByte having a max supply of 21 billion, you can't compare that to a fiat currency that can be printed to infinity.
Right.
And that's why you're going to continually have upward pressure on Bitcoin and DigiByte, because it's only getting scarcer and scarcer. But what you can do, just like gold was used as a reserve asset to back the US dollar from, 1913 until 71 when we went off the gold standard. You can use Bitcoin, but the problem is the Bitcoin blockchain is full. It can't scale. And that's where DigiByte is ideal. So you use DigiByte as a reserve asset, storable asset, to basically securitize a decentralized DigiDollar, right? But you got to maintain that peg. And how do you maintain that peg? Well, you got to have a mathematical equation that every single block calculates the amount of DigiByte that are locked up, the amount of DigiDollars that have been issued, and then maintains that free floating peg. So it's like I said, if that 100 DigiDollars worth of DigiByte you originally locked up is now only worth 75, well, to me in my wallet, it'll say, hey, because the market is under capitalized and reserved, it's going to cost you 1.25, DigiDollars. So you're actually at a loss, but you're like, hey, I really need these DigiDollars. I think eventually it's going to go back up. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and I'm going to lock it up for 6 months. Right. Or vice versa. Like I said, if you would have issued $100 DigiDollars at this time last year, that DigiByte you locked up for 12 months is now worth $1,000, but you still have that locked up. It's still yours. So you could basically burn that 100, unlock it, and then reissue 1,000, if that makes sense, right? So you got to have that free floating calculation. And that's the hard part. That's the $1 trillion problem to solve. Just like we did with the difficulty adjustment system, we adjusted it several times, made it real time. There would be a series of testing and implementation to get this done right. It's not going to be done right the first time, right? So it's going to take a lot of work. To do this, because obviously if people can gamify it and they can, lock something up one day and then not another day. Sorry, hold on a second. I got a bunch of calls here.
Every time I ask a question about like what can we do with nodes, what can we do with other projects to get connected with the DigiByte blockchain that could like leverage the DigiByte blockchain, but at the same time, it helps the DigiByte blockchain. Uh-oh, guys. We lost him. Well, that's it. We're going home. No. We'll see. Let's see if he joins back. All he has to do is click on the link. Here he is.
Oops, I don't know what happened.
On accident, it's all good.
Oh.
So, like I was saying, like what I was saying, like another kind of DigiByte project altogether, maybe talking to DigiByte, because apparently DigiByte is its own ecosystem. It does everything. You just have to program it to do that.
And a lot of people don't realize that. That's important. I want to highlight that. A lot of people don't realize that DigiByte is its own unique system that's not dependent on anything else. What are we right now? 60 in the top 60 or whatever? Yeah, if you look at that, there's only like maybe 6 or 7 of those platforms, maybe 10, that are their own unique blockchains. The rest of those are layers built on other blockchains. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's why this new platform I'm working on is going to help explain that to people, so you can actually see what decentralization means. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight that, because a lot of people don't give us credit.
Every time I venture off into, maybe we can, use DigiByte to manifest another DigiByte over here, or just I also did this. I've also stated this, and now I don't know if it's possible, but maybe like in the future, DigiByte isn't just going to be DigiByte. It's going to be another DigiByte, like stack a bunch of coins, stack DigiByte on top of DigiByte, on top of DigiByte, on top of DigiByte.
Yeah, and that's effectively what's going to happen. And you're going to have tons of other DigiByte's the base layer, right? Mm-hmm. It's the underlying, reserve network. But on top of that, you have all this other stuff built on top of it. That's exactly what's going to happen, and it is happening.
Yeah.
And that's what we were trying to work on with real estate. So you'd have real estate transactions and ownership anchored on top of it. You can have eventually securities and stocks on top of it. You can have, you could do it all.
That's sweet, man. So should we end it there?
Yeah, I think so. I'm getting hit up here. I gotta go to dinner. So
2 hours or what?
Yeah,
hour and a half with Jared Tate, almost.
Hour and a half.
Hey, man, thank you for being on the show. And thank you, everybody that's in the chat. A lot of people I do not know. So thank you for being here. And you were here to see the legend, Jared Tate. And you know what? Thank you for being on the show, Jared. And let's see. I always have people actually say your last words to the community, because the whole community is watching you.
No, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Without you, none of this would be possible. DigiByte's a grassroots movement. It's amazing to see all the quality, talented, hardworking people that have stepped forward and do stuff. And the reality is, if you got an idea and you want to do something on DigiByte, the sky's the limit. You don't need my permission. You don't need anybody's permission. There's a lot of people that want to help and do different things. There's a lot of great ideas, but go for it.
All right.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for having me on, and all you've done for the community, and for doing this show, and being an active member of the community. Appreciate it.
I'll continue to do that, Jared. And just like I said, I always wanted to figure out, if it wasn't money, it's my time, and I got to balance that with church, my church family and the DigiByte family, because that's how I compare it to, the Bible. Much like the Bible, the church is like DigiByte. Your book is like the Bible. DigiByte. Understanding DigiByte is like the Bible. You know how many facts that are just absolutes, and if you break that, then you don't have the truth anymore. You know what I mean? So,
it's really, I tell people all the time, all decentralized blockchain is very ingeniously applied math. It's all math. Yeah. Right. And math is, 1 + 1 is 2. So, that's the beautiful part of this.
Everything, it seems like conscious observers, we view and figure out like the universe and time and space and light and, with math, like everything's pi and all these Fibonacci sequences, numbers. It just seems like the whole world is just mathematically designed.
Yeah. No, there's math everywhere, and that's the beautiful part about this, and And that's where a lot of people think that this technology just popped up out of nowhere. No, I mean, what DigiByte is and what Bitcoin is basically the evolution of hundreds and thousands of years of mathematics, and it's just the continual evolution of that. So,
all right, well, Jared, wave to everybody. I'm going to send us out on the outro.
All right. Thank you, everybody.